I said it. I said it first, let's divorce. And I didn't say it that nice either.
Corey and Meredith Stark came from broken backgrounds. Corey strived to achieve his father's approval. He came from a non-Orthodox Jewish background where stability, material possessions, and provision were quintessential to the ideal lifestyle. Meredith longed to be loved. She was a fun young woman who also came from a broken home where girls were let out on the streets in their early teenage years.
Corey and I were a great team when things were good. We had so much fun together. And those memories, those things, our first year, we got married on our 1-year anniversary of our dating, and then the first year into it, it was all fairy tale. It was wonderful. Like, we had great memories. We have great memories, great time. But then things started to unravel in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if my identity is wrapped up in the money that I have, the position that I hold, the possessions that I have, the problem is that when you lose all your money,
you lose all your position.
You can't get a job for over a year.
Yeah.
You have to sell all of your possessions to make ends meet, and it still isn't enough. Then what does that say about you? What does it say about who you are?
He and I both have different backgrounds, but one thing that stayed the same through our backgrounds is that we both learned that when things are hard, you chop it off and you get rid of it. That means people, that means circumstances, that means whatever. Bad feelings, chop them off, go. If you're causing it, if it's causing it, they're out of here.
And we had no communication tools. We didn't know how to communicate our emotions. We didn't know how to work through any kind of turmoil, any kind of conflict at all. We both didn't like conflict, and so we ran from it.
What ended up happening is we just began to blame each other. Like, I'm blaming him for not loving me the way I need to be loved. Who cares about all our circumstances? We're gonna make it. And he's saying the circumstances is everything. Who cares about this, you needing love?
So I would have stayed in that marriage unhappy as long as it took. But when she actually gave the open door and said, I'm filing for divorce, I actually took a deep breath and said, thank God.
Prior to the divorce, Meredith became pregnant, and their daughter Sammy was born. Their relationship continued to fall apart, and in the heat of this, they chose to end the marriage. After the divorce, Corey was now free to pursue ministry. At this time, Corey began a house of prayer with a friend from church, but he realized that he had translated his secular American dream version of success to ministry. Meredith took a year away from the Lord, but she realized that nothing could satisfy her heart like Jesus. After coming to the end of herself, she turned back to God and began to attend Corey's house of prayer.
So here we are, we're living life in the house of prayer, ups and downs, really hard, trying to raise our daughter, and we get to the point, we've gone through some counseling, through different issues.
After 3 years of failed counseling, the Starks were just about to give up on the day before their last session.
So that morning, I'm in the house of prayer. She's on a worship team singing about the love between the bride and the bridegroom. I mean, they're singing through the Song of Songs. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, get me out of here. And I'm just flipping through the Bible. I'm thinking I've got 1 hour left. I want to read something. I came across Matthew 17, verse 11, where Jesus' disciples ask him, why does it say Elijah must come first? And Jesus said, I tell you, Elijah will come first and will restore all things. And when I read that phrase, will restore all things, it was like the Lord gave me a supernatural gift of faith to understand He would restore our marriage, He would restore our family. It's the first time I had faith for it. And it wasn't about going back to the way things were, it was about stepping into what the Lord had for us in the future, which I had never seen yet. So I knew that my turning of my heart back to my wife was related to the Spirit and the power of Elijah. So I began to study that in the Bible, everywhere I could find it, and I came to the most random book on the spirit of Elijah. It was James, the book of James.
James 5:16, and it says, confess your sin one to another and pray for one another, and I will heal your land. I will heal you.
And the Lord spoke to me, and He said, if you would humble yourself and confess your sins to your wife, and then have her pray for you in that area of your weakness, I will use her as a channel of grace, a channel of power, spirit of Elijah, to turn your heart towards your wife, and I will heal your marriage. When that happened, all the offense was gone, in a moment. And so we knew immediately that it was time to get married again. I mean, this is what we had been waiting for. God can restore us. He can restore anybody.